The crowd came to watch a human get crushed. Instead, they watched our undefeated champion step backward for the first time in his life, because the little Earth girl didn't flinch when he broke her ribs. Look, I have seen a lot of stupid things in my 17 cycles working security on Station Apex 7. I have seen Glorthians try to drink Terran alcohol. I have seen Pixians attempt to arm wrestle Krognars. I have even seen a Yaltine try to eat what humans call a ghost pepper on a dare. But this took the grand prize for absolute, unfiltered insanity. The underground arena on level 43 was packed tighter than a cargo hold full of Centauri silk. Every species you could think of had crammed themselves into the viewing stands, their credits ready, their betting chips loaded. The air reeked of 1,000 different biology types, all breathing, sweating and shouting in their native tongues. It was chaos, beautiful, profitable chaos. And there, standing in the center of the reinforced combat ring, was Krell. Krell the Unbreakable. Krell the Bone Crusher. Krell the absolute nightmare that had torn through 47 consecutive opponents without so much as a scratch on his chitinous hide. The Vothran stood nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh arena lights like polished obsidian. 4 arms, each one thick as a cargo beam, flexed and rolled as he performed his pre-fight routine. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for a Vothran smile, that smug, self-assured gesture that said he knew he had already won. The crowd loved him. They always did. Winners make people money, and Krell made people very, very rich. Ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between. The announcer, a Pixian named Torv, hovered above the arena on his anti-gravity platform, his voice amplified through every speaker in the section. Tonight, we have a special treat. Our champion, the undefeated, the unstoppable, the utterly merciless Krell, will face a new challenger. The crowd roared. Credits exchanged hands faster than lightspeed communications. Everyone wanted a piece of the action. And his opponent, Torv continued, his voice taking on that particular tone that meant even he thought this was ridiculous, hailing from the recently contacted world of Earth. Please welcome Kira Torres. The side gate hissed open. What walked out made half the crowd go silent and the other half burst into laughter. She was small, laughably small by any reasonable standard. Maybe 1.7 meters if you were being generous. No exoskeleton, no scales, no natural armor plating whatsoever. Just soft, pale skin wrapped around what looked like the most fragile skeletal structure I had ever seen. Her dark hair was pulled back tight against her skull. Her eyes, those strange human eyes with their singular focal point, scanned the arena with a coldness that seemed completely at odds with her situation. She wore simple combat wraps on her hands and standard arena clothing. No weapons. No enhancements. Nothing. Krell looked down at her and clicked his mandibles again. This time, the sound carried across the entire arena through the audio pickups. It was laughter. Pure, dismissive laughter. This is the challenge? His voice boomed, translated through the universal comm systems. This soft thing? I have eaten ration bars more threatening than this. The crowd ate it up. The laughter spread like a virus. Betting screens lit up across the arena, and I watched the odds shift so dramatically in Krell's favor that the numbers barely made sense anymore. 10,000 to 1, 15,000 to 1, 20,000 to 1, against the human. I should have been laughing too. By every logical measure, this was a joke. A publicity stunt. Maybe even an execution disguised as entertainment. But here is the thing that stopped me cold. Kira Torres was not laughing. She was not scared. She was not even bothered. She just stood there, perfectly still, watching Krell with those cold, calculating eyes. And when Torv asked if both fighters were ready, she spoke for the first time. Her voice came through clear and steady, with not even a tremor of fear. Ready. That should have been everyone's first warning. The betting alcoves along the arena's upper rim were going absolutely berserk. I had never, and I mean never, seen odds this lopsided in all my cycles on Apex 7. The holographic displays flickered with numbers that kept climbing higher and higher against the human. 25,000 to 1. A Draxian merchant shouted, waving his credit chip in the air like it was on fire. I will put 50,000 credits on Krell in the first minute. 30,000 to 1 now, another voice called out. Does anyone actually want to bet on the human? Anyone? No? Did not think so. A small group of what looked like freight haulers were laughing so hard that one of them, a Quelon, had started leaking atmospheric fluid from his breathing slits. "Look at her. Look at that tiny thing. My hatchlings have more mass than she does." In the ring below, Krell was putting on a show. He slammed his 4 fists together in sequence, creating thunderous booms that echoed through the arena. Each impact would have shattered bones in most species. He was playing to the crowd, and they loved every second of it. "Let me educate you all," Krell bellowed, gesturing with one massive arm toward Kira. "Humans come from a world with barely standard gravity. Their bones are hollow, their muscles are weak, they have no natural defenses, no armor, no venom, no strength worth mentioning." He clicked his mandibles in that infuriating way of his. "I have studied your species, little human. You are prey animals that got lucky with technology. Nothing more." Kira said nothing. She was in her corner, doing something that looked bizarre to everyone watching. She was stretching, slowly, methodically, pulling each limb through a range of motion that seemed excessive, rolling her shoulders, rotating her neck, shaking out her hands. One of my fellow security officers, a Benthar named Rooks, sidled up next to me. His 3 eyes were all focused on the ring below, and his concern was palpable through his scent markers. "We should stop this," he muttered, quiet enough that only I could hear. "This is not a fight. This is going to be a murder. That human must weigh, what, 60 kilograms? Krell weighs 400 minimum. One hit and she is done." "Station regulations," I replied, though I felt the same unease. Both participants signed the waiver. Both are of legal age and sound mind. Both acknowledged the risks. "Sound mind," Rooks hissed. "What sound mind walks into a ring with Krell the Unbreakable?" That was the question, was it not? I had pulled Kira's file before the match, basic background check that security runs on all arena participants. Most of it was restricted, flagged with Earth military classifications that I did not have clearance to access, but the little I could see told a story. Kira Torres, age 28 standard years, former something or other in Earth's armed forces, details redacted, arrived on Apex 7 3 cycles ago, worked freight loading on the lower decks, no prior arrests, no incidents, kept to herself. And then, 2 weeks ago, she had walked into the arena registration office and put down every credit she had as an entry fee. The betting pools had a side board, a small one that most people ignored. It listed the stakes each fighter had declared. Krell's entry said glory and reputation. Standard champion nonsense. Kira's entry said something different. It said medical debt, 30,000 credits, non-negotiable. Someone she knew needed help. Someone she cared about was dying or sick or broken, and the only way she could get the money was to step into a ring with a monster and hope she walked out alive. In the ring, Krell was still talking, still mocking, still playing the crowd like a master showman. Kira finished her stretching routine. She stepped to the center line of the ring. Her face was blank, empty of emotion. But her hands, I noticed, had curled into fists so tight that her knuckles had turned white. Torv's voice boomed across the arena. "Fighters ready? Then let us begin." The bell rang, and Krell charged forward like a freight train made of knives and bad intentions. Krell moved fast, terrifyingly fast for something his size. His forearms became a blur of striking chitin as he closed the distance between himself and Kira in less than 2 seconds. The crowd held its collective breath, waiting for the inevitable splatter of human across the arena floor. His first strike came in high, a hammer fist that could have caved in a Quellen's skull like an overripe fruit. I saw it coming. Everyone saw it coming. It was the kind of telegraphed power move that Krell loved, the kind that made crowds gasp and opponents panic. Kira stepped 6 inches to the left. The fist whistled past her head, missing by a margin so thin you could not have slipped a credit chip through it. Krell's momentum carried him forward half a step. His mandibles clicked in surprise, but he recovered instantly. Professional fighter, after all. He pivoted and brought 2 more arms around in a sweeping combination that would have caught her from both sides simultaneously. She ducked under the first, leaned back from the second. Neither strike connected. "Stop moving!" Krell snarled, and I realized with a start that he was already annoyed. 47 fights, and most of them had ended with his opening combination. The ones that had not ended there had at least resulted in his opponent staggering, broken, desperate. Kira had not even been touched yet. Krell changed tactics. He stopped trying for the spectacular knockout, and instead unleashed a barrage of strikes, all four arms working in concert. A storm of chitin-plated violence that filled the space where Kira stood. No dodging that. No avoiding it. Simple mathematics and physics meant she had to get hit. And she did. The first punch caught her in the shoulder. The sound it made, that solid thump of impact, echoed through the arena. The crowd cheered. Finally, contact. Kira slid backward 3 meters from the force, her feet scraping against the arena floor. But she did not fall. She did not crumple. She did not scream. She rolled her shoulder once, twice, like she was testing it. Then she looked back up at Krell, and smiled. What? Krell's voice had lost some of its confidence. He stared at his fist, then at the human, then back at his fist. How are you still standing? The second punch came faster, aimed at her ribs. This one landed clean, a shot that I had seen Krell use to literally crack a Draxian's entire torso casing. It hit Kira dead center, right where her fragile organs should have been pulverized. She grunted, took 2 steps back, her hand went to her side briefly, and I thought, there it is. Internal bleeding, she is done. But then she straightened up, still standing, still conscious, still smiling that cold, empty smile. Impossible! Someone in the crowd shouted. A Yaltine, by the sound of it, she should be broken. Humans are fragile. Everyone knows this. Krell clearly agreed. His confidence was cracking now, replaced by something that looked dangerously close to confusion. He hit her again. This time in the stomach, a pile driver of a punch that lifted her clear off her feet and sent her sprawling onto the arena floor. The crowd went wild. Surely that was it. That had to be it. Kira lay there for maybe 3 seconds. Then she put her palms on the ground, pushed herself up, got to her knees, then to her feet. She spat something red onto the arena floor, blood clearly, but when she looked back at Krell, she was still upright, still moving, still very much in the fight. You hit like a Vathran, she said, her voice steady despite the fact that she had just taken 3 strikes that should have killed her. Problem is, I grew up on Earth. Krell stared at her. The crowd had gone from cheering to murmuring. Something was wrong here. Something did not add up. This was not how humans were supposed to work. They were soft, fragile, easy to break. I caught Rooks looking at me with all 3 eyes wide. What is her world's gravity? He asked quietly. I pulled up the data on my wrist display. Felt my own breathing slits constrict when I saw the number. 9.8 meters per second squared. I read aloud, standard human gravity. How much is that compared to Vothran's standard? I did the conversion, felt my stomach drop, almost twice, nearly double Vothran gravity. Rooks made a choking sound. She has been training her entire life in twice Krell's home gravity. Her bones, her muscles, her entire body built to handle twice the stress he grew up with. In the ring, Krell threw another punch. This time Kira did not even try to dodge. She brought her forearm up and blocked it. Chatham met flesh and bone. The flesh and bone did not break. Krell's mandibles clicked frantically now, the sound no longer smug or amused. That was the sound of a predator realizing it might have cornered something far more dangerous than anticipated. Kira cracked her neck to one side, then the other. My turn, she said. Krell stepped backward. Actually stepped backward. In 47 fights I had never seen him retreat. Not once. Not ever. But there he was, putting distance between himself and the small human who had just taken his best shots and remained standing. This is a trick, he announced, his voice booming across the arena, though I detected something new in it now. Uncertainty. Some kind of human technology. Hidden armor. Chemical enhancements. Something. Kira did not respond immediately. She was breathing hard now. I could see that much. Her ribs were probably cracked, maybe broken. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. By all reasonable medical standards, she should have been on the ground, unconscious, waiting for emergency medical transport. Instead, she started walking toward him. Not running, not charging, just walking. 1 foot in front of the other. Steady, relentless, inevitable. You cannot hurt me, Krell declared, slamming his primary fists together again. That signature move of his, the one he used to intimidate opponents into submission. I am Vothran. My exoskeleton has been tested against plasma cutters, against kinetic rounds, against every weapon in known space. Your soft fists cannot harm me, human." Kira stopped walking. She stood there, maybe 5 meters away from him, and tilted her head slightly to one side. That cold smile never left her face, but something changed in her eyes. Something shifted. The careful restraint I had seen before, the measured responses, the defensive posture, all of that evaporated like water in a vacuum. "You cannot hurt me," Krell repeated, louder this time, trying to convince himself as much as the crowd. "I do not miss," Kira replied, her voice quiet but somehow carrying across the entire arena through the audio pickups. Then she moved. I had thought Krell was fast. I was wrong. Kira moved like gravity itself had decided to stop applying to her. She closed the 5-meter gap in a heartbeat, her body low, her movements efficient and brutal. No wasted motion. No flourish. Just pure, calculated violence. Her first strike hit Krell in the joint where his lower left arm connected to his torso. The impact sounded different than his punches had. Sharper. More focused. Less about raw power and more about precision. Krell's mandibles clicked in surprise, and that arm went limp. "What did you do?" he demanded, backing up again. Someone in the crowd, a Terran merchant I recognized from the shipping district, started laughing. Not the mocking laughter from before, this was something else. Recognition maybe. Or vindication. "Do you know what Earth is?" the merchant called out to nobody in particular. "Do any of you actually know?" Krell swung with his remaining 3 arms. Kira ducked under one, deflected another, and took the third on her forearm again. The same forearm that had blocked his earlier strike. The same arm that should have been shattered by now. She drove her fist into his midsection, right where his exoskeleton plates overlapped. Something cracked. Loudly. "Earth has 9.8 meters per second squared gravity," the merchant continued, his voice rising with excitement. "Their atmosphere is 21% oxygen, which is toxic to half the species in this station. Their water is filled with dissolved minerals that would kill most of us. Their weather patterns include electrical storms that discharge billions of volts. Their tectonic plates shift constantly, causing ground-shaking quakes. Their sun bombards them with radiation that causes cellular mutations." Kira hit Krell again. Same spot. The crack became a crunch. The crowd had gone silent now, dead silent. The kind of silence that happens when people realize they have made a terrible, terrible miscalculation. "They have predators," the merchant went on, and I realized he was not talking to us anymore. He was talking to himself, working through his own horror. "Apex predators. On land, in water, in the air. Everything on that world is trying to kill everything else. And humans are the ones who won. Humans are the species that climbed to the top of that nightmare food chain and planted their flag." Krell tried to grab Kira with his remaining good arms. She slipped past them like smoke and struck him in the knee joint. His leg buckled. The unbreakable dropped to one knee, mandibles clicking frantically. "You cannot hurt me," he wheezed. But it sounded like a prayer now, a desperate hope rather than a statement of fact. Kira leaned in close, and when she spoke, her voice was cold enough to freeze hydrogen. "Every single day on my world is a fight to survive," she said. "Every breath we take is in an atmosphere that would poison you. Every step we make is under gravity that would crush your bones. Every meal we eat comes from killing something or taking it from something that wanted to kill us. We are not lucky, Krell. We are not weak. We are what happens when evolution runs out of ways to kill a species and that species just gets angry about it." She straightened up, took a step back, raised her fists. "Now get up," she ordered. "I am not done teaching you what a Deathworlder can do." What happened next was not a fight. Not really. It was a clinic. A masterclass in controlled destruction, delivered by someone who had spent their entire life learning how to break things that did not want to be broken. Krell rose to his feet, favoring his good leg, his remaining 3 functional arms held up in a defensive posture that would have been adequate against any other opponent in the circuit. Against Kira Torres, it might as well have been made of tissue paper. She circled him now, not rushing, not charging, just moving with that same patient, methodical pace, like she had all the time in the world, like she knew exactly how this was going to end and was simply working through the necessary steps to get there. "Your exoskeleton," she said, conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather and not engaged in brutal combat. Has a weakness at every joint. 7 major connection points. I have already disabled 2 of them. Krell swung wildly, desperation replacing technique. Kira leaned back, the strike missing her face by centimeters. While he was overextended, she stepped inside his guard and drove her elbow into his shoulder joint. Another crack, another limb went slack. 2 arms left. I felt my breathing slits working overtime. Beside me, Rooks had gone completely still, all 3 eyes locked on the ring below. Around us, the crowd had stopped betting, stopped cheering, stopped doing anything except watching in mounting horror as their champion was systematically taken apart. "How is she still moving?" someone whispered. "Aquelon, I think. She took hits that would have killed me 3 times over." That was the question, was it not? I had accessed Earth medical data during the fight, pulling up information that made my internal organs clench. Human pain tolerance was not just high, it was insane. They had something called adrenaline, a chemical their bodies produced under stress that allowed them to ignore catastrophic injuries and keep functioning. Keep fighting. Keep moving. There were documented cases of humans continuing to fight with broken bones, punctured organs, severed limbs. Their brains simply overrode the damage signals and kept the body operational long past the point where any sane species would have shut down. Kira was operating on that now. I could see it in the way she moved, slightly favoring her left side where Krell's rib strikes had landed. But favoring did not mean stopping. It just meant adapting. She hit him again, this time in the side of his head, right where his sensory cluster was located. Krell staggered, his mandibles clicking in a rapid arrhythmic pattern that I recognized as Vothran distress signaling. "You keep saying I cannot hurt you," Kira observed, her breathing heavy but controlled. "But you are hurt. I can see it. Your left primary arm is hanging useless. Your lower left is non-functional. Your upper right is barely responding to your commands. Your leg is compromised, and you are scared." "I am not scared," Krell roared, but his voice cracked on the last word. "I am Vothran. I am the Unbreakable. I am champion of Apex 7. "You were champion," Kira corrected. She moved again, faster now, and Krell could not track her. His remaining good arm swung through empty space while she was already past his guard. She grabbed his damaged leg and pulled, not pushed, pulled, used his own weight and momentum against him. Krell crashed to the arena floor with a sound like a cargo container dropping from height. The reinforced plating beneath him actually dented from the impact. He tried to rise. Got halfway up, Kira kicked him in the exact same spot on his ribs where she had punched him twice before. This time, the exoskeleton did not just crack, it shattered. Pieces of chitin scattered across the arena floor like broken glass. Krell screamed, an actual genuine scream of pain that cut through every species' universal understanding of suffering. The crowd recoiled. Some of them looked away. Others leaned in, transfixed by the horror of watching their invincible champion reduced to this. "Yield," Kira said. Not a question. A command. "Never," Krell gasped, trying once more to rise. "I am unbreakable. I am champion. I am." Kira did not let him finish. She struck him in the head again, harder this time. Krell's eyes went unfocused. His remaining good arm fell limp. His mandibles stopped clicking. He was conscious, barely, but he was done. Finished. Defeated. And Kira just stood there, breathing hard, blood running from her mouth and nose, her ribs almost certainly broken in multiple places, her body a map of bruises that would have hospitalized anyone else. But she was standing. She was the one still standing. I checked my wrist display, pulling up the medical readouts that the arena sensors automatically recorded. Kira's pain threshold readings were off the scale. The system kept flagging them as errors, unable to comprehend how someone could be conscious, let alone functional, with that level of trauma. "Deathworlder," Rooks whispered beside me, and there was awe in his voice now, awe and terror. "She is an actual Deathworlder. We have been sharing stations with Deathworlders and treating them like they were harmless." In the ring, Kira turned slowly to face the crowd. That cold smile was gone now. Her expression was neutral, empty, the face of someone who had done an ugly job and was simply waiting for it to be officially over. "Anyone else?" she asked, her voice carrying through the silence. Nobody answered. Nobody dared. For a moment I thought it was over. Krell lay on the arena floor, broken and defeated, his breathing ragged through his mandibles. The crowd remained frozen in that shocked silence. Torv hovered on his platform, seemingly unable to remember what he was supposed to do next. Then Krell moved. It was pathetic, really. Desperate. His one remaining functional arm reached out, grasping at Kira's ankle as she turned away from him. His fingers closed around her leg with what little strength he had left. "Not done," he wheezed, his translator struggling to process his damaged vocal system. "Not defeated, until one of us cannot continue." Kira looked down at the hand gripping her ankle, then up at Krell's face. Those cold, calculating eyes studied him for a long moment, and I saw something flicker across her expression. Not pity, exactly. Maybe recognition, the acknowledgement of a fellow fighter who refused to quit even when quitting was the only sane option left. "Okay," she said quietly, "if that is how you want it." She pivoted on her free leg, torquing her entire body into the motion, and drove her heel down onto Krell's elbow joint with surgical precision. The sound it made was worse than all the previous impacts combined. Wet. Final. Absolute. Krell's arm went limp. His mandibles opened in a silent scream, no sound emerging. His eyes, all four of them, rolled back in his head. He was not unconscious. Worse, he was awake, aware, and completely unable to move. Every limb disabled. Every joint compromised. His exoskeleton breached in a dozen places. He lay there, gasping, defeated not just in body but in spirit. Kira stepped back and raised one hand. "He cannot continue," she announced. "Match over." The arena exploded. Not with cheers, exactly. More like a collective release of tension. A cacophony of voices all trying to process what they had just witnessed. Half the crowd was demanding their money back, screaming about fraud and deception. The other half was frantically trying to collect on the few bets that had been placed on the human. Torv finally remembered his job. Winner. By incapacitation, Kira Torres. The medical team rushed into the ring, 3 Quellan medics pushing a hover stretcher. They reached Krell first, scanning him with their instruments. I watched their body language shift from professional urgency to genuine alarm. 4 limbs completely non-functional, one of them announced into his comm unit. Exoskeleton integrity compromised at 14%, multiple internal fractures. Severe trauma to sensory cluster. He needs surgery immediately, multiple surgeries. How did a human do this? They loaded Krell onto the stretcher with practiced efficiency, though I noticed they kept glancing nervously at Kira, like she might suddenly decide to attack them too. Another medic approached Kira cautiously. "Miss Torres, you need medical attention. Your ribs are broken. You are bleeding internally. You need to come with us right now." "After I collect my winnings," Kira replied, her voice flat and non-negotiable. The medic opened his mouth to argue, took one look at her face, and wisely shut up. I followed Kira as she limped. Yes, limped, toward the payout station. Her left leg was barely supporting her weight now that the adrenaline was wearing off. Every breath she took was shallow and pained. By all rights, she should have collapsed 3 times on the way there. She did not collapse. She reached the window where a very nervous-looking Benther clerk was frantically calculating numbers on his display. 30,000 credits, Kira stated. That was the prize for defeating the champion. Plus my entry fee returned. Plus whatever percentage of the betting pool goes to the winner under station regulations. The clerk's 3 eyes darted between his screen and Kira's blood-covered face. Yes, well, there is some dispute about the legitimacy of the match and we need to review the footage, and there are concerns about whether proper protocols were. Kira leaned forward slightly, winced from the pain but did not stop. I won. He lost. Pay me. Now. The clerk made a small squeaking sound and started processing the transaction immediately. Credits transferred. 53,000 total, once the betting pool percentage was calculated. More than enough for whatever medical debt she needed to clear. Kira checked her account balance on the display, nodded once. Then and only then did she turn to the medical team that had been hovering anxiously nearby. Okay, she said, now you can treat me. She took 2 steps toward them and collapsed. The medics caught her before she hit the ground, already shouting for emergency equipment and surgical prep. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, I saw her smile one last time, not that cold, empty smile from the fight. This one was genuine, relieved. She had done it, against impossible odds, against a champion who had never lost, against every logical prediction and calculation. She had won. 3 hours later, I found myself in the station's main bar, surrounded by a dozen different species all trying to make sense of what we had just witnessed. The drinks were flowing freely, though most of us were too shaken to actually enjoy them. I lost 40,000 credits, a Draxian shipping magnate moaned into his glass. 40,000 on a sure thing. On the unbreakable. How was I supposed to know? How was anyone supposed to know? A Pixian trader shot back. Humans have been on this station for 3 cycles. 3 cycles. They work freight, they fix machinery, they do all the jobs nobody else wants. They are quiet, they are polite, they smile and nod and never cause trouble. And then one of them walks into a ring and dismantles our champion like he was made of cheap plastic. I was nursing my own drink, something mild from Yalti Prime that would not mess with my biochemistry too badly, when a human walked into the bar. Not Kira, obviously. She was in medical, being put back together by very confused doctors. This was someone else, a male, older, maybe 50 standard years if I was reading their aging patterns correctly. He had the same compact build as Kira, that same density of muscle that I now understood came from a lifetime under crushing gravity. He spotted our group and walked over. "Mind if I join you?" Nobody objected. We were all too curious and too terrified to say no. He sat down, ordered something called whiskey, which the bartender had to look up in the human imports catalog, and then turned to face us. "My name is Marcus Chen," he said. "I served with Kira Torres in the Terran Colonial Marines, 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion. We did 3 tours together in the outer reaches." The table went quiet. "Kira Torres," Marcus continued, taking a sip of his drink, "has 43 confirmed combat missions. She specialized in hostile environment insertion. That means they dropped her onto planets where everything, and I mean everything, was actively trying to kill her. Toxic atmospheres, predatory wildlife, extreme temperatures, hostile forces, and her job was to survive long enough to complete the mission." "Why is she here?" Rooks asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why is someone like that working freight on a border station?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Because the military does not pay well enough. Her younger brother Daniel got sick 2 years ago. Some kind of genetic condition that requires expensive off-world treatment. Treatment that costs about 30,000 credits per cycle. Kira left the service, came out here where the pay was better, and has been sending every credit she earns back home to keep him alive." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She risked her life for medical debt. She risked her life for family. Marcus corrected. "There is a difference. And before any of you start thinking humans are all like her, let me be clear. Kira is exceptional even by our standards. Most humans could not do what she just did. But most humans also grew up on Earth, and Earth does not raise the weak. It cannot afford to." A Yaltine merchant leaned forward. "Your world is really that dangerous." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let me tell you about Earth. We have storms called hurricanes that can level entire cities. We have waves called tsunamis that can erase coastlines. We have ground movements called earthquakes that can swallow buildings whole. We have temperature variations that range from hot enough to boil water to cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide. And that is just the weather." He took another drink. "Then there are the animals. We have land predators that can run faster than most species' ground vehicles. We have ocean predators with teeth the size of your arm. We have aerial predators with vision so sharp they can spot prey from 3 kilometers up. We have insects that can kill with a single sting. We have plants that can digest flesh. We have microorganisms that can shut down your entire immune system in hours." "And humans survived all of that?" someone asked. "Survived?" Marcus shook his head. "We conquered it. We built cities in the middle of deserts. We built homes in frozen tundras. We built villages on the edges of active volcanoes. We looked at every hostile environment on our planet and said, we will live here anyway. And we did." He finished his drink and stood up. "Kira will be fine, by the way. Doctors say she will be back on her feet in 2 weeks. Broken ribs, internal bruising, fractured wrist, mild concussion. For a human, especially one with her training, that is a bad weekend. not a career-ending injury. 2 weeks, Rook sputtered. Those injuries would take me 3 months to recover from. Marcus smiled. Different worlds, different biology. Now if you will excuse me, I need to go check on her. Oh, and one more thing. He paused at the door and looked back at us. Station Command is implementing new regulations tomorrow. All human participants in combat sports will be required to disclose their gravity rating and military background. They will also be placed in a separate weight and danger class. Apparently, the station master is concerned about liability issues after what happened to Krell. How is Krell? I found myself asking. Alive. Barely. He will recover eventually, but his fighting career is over. Too much structural damage. The doctors are calling it a medical marvel that he survived it all. Marcus paused. Kira pulled every strike, every single one. She hit him hard enough to win, but not hard enough to kill. That level of control while injured, while under stress, while fighting for her brother's life. That is what a trained Deathworlder looks like when they are being merciful. He left. The bar remained silent for a long time after that. Finally, the Draxian merchant spoke up. I think I need to revise my understanding of humans. I think we all do, I replied. 2 weeks later, I was back on duty at the cargo docks, running standard security checks on outbound freight, when I saw her, Kira Torres, walking slowly but steadily toward docking bay 7, a single travel bag slung over her shoulder. Her ribs were still wrapped. I could see the compression bandaging under her shirt, but she moved with that same efficient, purposeful stride I had seen in the arena. I should have let her pass, should have kept my head down and my mouth shut. But I found myself stepping into her path. Miss Torres, I said, keeping my voice respectful. Leaving us? She stopped, looked at me with those cold, calculating eyes, and for a moment I thought she might simply walk around me without responding. But then her expression softened, just slightly. My brother's treatment is paid for, she said simply. For the next 2 cycles at minimum. No reason for me to stay. Where will you go? She shrugged, then winced at the motion. Still healing then. Somewhere that needs freight workers. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I do not have to fight anymore. I nodded, understanding more than she probably realized. For what it is worth, I am sorry you had to do what you did. No one should have to risk their life like that just to save someone they love. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Or appreciation. Thank you, she said quietly. But I would do it again. Without hesitation. That is what family means. She moved to walk past me, then paused. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did everyone think humans were weak? We have been here for 3 cycles. We work the heavy machinery. We handle the dangerous cargo. We do all the jobs that require strength and endurance. Did no one ever wonder why? I felt my breathing slits constrict in embarrassment. We thought you were desperate. We thought you took those jobs because you had no other options, not because you were capable. Kira smiled, that same cold smile from the arena. Assumptions. They will get you killed in my line of work, or former line of work, anyway. She walked away then, toward her transport, and I watched her go, watched the other dock workers, members of a dozen different species, all give her a wide berth. The respect in their movements was palpable, so was the fear. That evening I found myself back in the bar with Rooks. The place was quieter now, the usual boisterous energy dampened by recent events. Krell was still in medical, facing months of reconstructive surgery, and an uncertain future. The arena had suspended all combat matches pending a complete regulatory overhaul, and humans, those quiet, unassuming humans who had been living among us for cycles, were suddenly the subject of nervous conversations and worried speculation. I pulled the data on Earth, Rook said, sliding a data pad across the table to me. Really pulled it? Not just the tourist information or the basic planetary specs. I went into the deep archives, the ecological surveys, the xenobiology reports. I picked up the pad and started reading. Felt my organs clench tighter with every line. Earth was classified as a Class 12 Deathworld. Class 12. I had not even known the classification scale went that high. The report detailed atmospheric composition that would be toxic to most species, gravity that would crush fragile frames, temperature swings that would kill within hours, radiation levels that required biological adaptations just to survive. And that was before getting into the predators, The diseases, the geological instability. How did they ever develop spaceflight? I asked. How did they survive long enough to build a civilization? That is the question, is it not? Rooks replied. Most Deathworlds do not produce sapient species. The evolutionary pressure is too intense. Species either go extinct or remain permanently locked in survival mode. But humans, they did not just survive. They thrived. They built cities, created art, developed science, reached for the stars, all while living on a planet actively trying to kill them every single day. I set the datapad down, and we thought they were weak. We thought they were lucky, Rooks corrected. Lucky to have survived, lucky to have technology, lucky to have made it off their world. We never considered that maybe, just maybe, surviving that nightmare made them into something we could not comprehend. I thought about Kira standing in that arena, broken and bleeding but still standing, still fighting, still winning. I thought about Marcus and his casual description of Earth's horrors. I thought about all the humans on this station, quietly doing their jobs, never complaining, never causing trouble, never showing us what they were really capable of. There are 63 humans on Apex 7 right now, I said quietly. 63 individuals from a Class 12 Deathworld, living among us, working beside us. How many of them have military backgrounds like Kira? How many of them could do what she did if they needed to? Rooks was silent for a long moment. I do not want to know, he finally admitted. I really genuinely do not want to know. 3 cycles later, I heard a story from a cargo hauler who had been passing through the outer reaches. He claimed he had seen Kira Torres again, working freight on some backwater mining station. Said she looked happy, or at least content, said she kept to herself. Did her job and never caused any trouble. He also said that the local toughs, the ones who usually harassed new workers and demanded protection money, took one look at her and decided to find employment elsewhere. Apparently word travels fast in certain circles. Word about what happens when you push a human too far. Word about what a Deathworlder can do when they stop holding back. I think about that fight sometimes. About Krell's confident declaration. About his absolute certainty that he could not be hurt, could not be beaten, could not be broken. And I think about Kira's response, cold and factual and utterly terrifying in its simplicity. He said, "You cannot hurt me." She said, "I do not miss." And that, I have come to understand, is the fundamental difference between someone who has never truly been tested and someone who was forged in a crucible we cannot even imagine. Krell grew up on a world that was gentle, predictable, safe. He became a champion in an environment where he was always the biggest, always the strongest, always the most dangerous thing in the room. Kira grew up on Earth. Every single day of her life was a lesson in humility, in survival, in understanding that the universe does not care about your confidence or your reputation or your undefeated streak. Earth taught her that nature is indifferent to suffering, that safety is an illusion, that the only thing standing between you and death is your willingness to adapt, to endure, to keep fighting when every logical impulse screams at you to give up. Krell learned to fight in an arena. Kira learned to fight on a Deathworld. There was never any contest. I have updated my security protocols since then, added new training modules for the team, revised our threat assessment guidelines to account for species origin and gravitational rating. But most importantly, I have learned something that I will carry with me for the rest of my cycles. Never ever underestimate a human. Because when they say they do not miss, they mean it. And when they decide to stop pulling their punches, there is nothing in this universe that can prepare you for what comes next. Nothing at all.